Nevertheless, there are exceptions to the rule. Therefore, let's review the exceptions. They're very straightforward. First of all, the exceptions to the background check requirement when selling or transferring a firearm boils down to family members that are related to someone by blood, by marriage, adoption, etc. Let's go through the blood situation, for example. Cousin, father, brother, sister. Let's say Israel and Riley are related, right? They're brothers. And Riley want to conduct the sale of the AR-15 to Israel or the transfer to Israel because, again, they can do that based on this exception. And it'll be perfectly lawful without violation of the law. Furthermore, by marriage, again, very straightforward. Let's just say that Israel wanted to sell or transfer the firearm to his wife. Perfectly lawful. They don't have to go to the licensed dealer and conduct the background check. Perfectly lawful. Of course, for all these exceptions here that I listed in the first exception, you need to know that the person does not have a felony background, right? So if your father or your brother has a felony background, you know they cannot get any firearms. That will not fall under this exception. But if they do not, then you should be staying clear. Furthermore, for the second one, antique firearms. Interesting, but if it's an antique firearm, do your research on the firearm that you're handling. Basically, the defendant will not be liable for this crime because antique firearms are the exception for the background check requirement. Furthermore, the third exception to the rule will be temporary transfers if immediate serious bodily injury or death, and last as long as necessary to prevent serious bodily injury or death. So again, another example that I can give when it boils down to that is let's just pretend that Austin and his wife are sleeping in their home and someone goes into the home and commits the crime of burglary. Austin can hand his gun to his wife to use it temporarily to gun down the thief, to gun down the criminal. And that would be perfectly lawful because it's a temporary transfer, not a permanent transfer or sale. It is a temporary transfer because immediate bodily harm or death is imminent because the criminal is in the home. And again, look at the and here. Two things must happen. It must be immediate and last as long as necessary to prevent the threat of serious bodily injury or death. So in my example, if Austin's wife guns down the thief, guns down the criminal, and he's dead, then she must get the firearm back to Austin. That'll be a temporary transfer to attack the serious bodily injury or death. And like I just said, the threat is no longer present because she prevented it by gunning the guy down. Therefore, she must get the gun back to Austin and she will not be charged with this crime because, again, it falls under the exception. Moreover, lastly, another exception could be shooting ranges, competitions for guns, or if the individual is using the firearm in the presence of the transferor. So basically, let's say you're at a shooting range with your friends, you have two guns, they don't have any guns, and you let them use one of your firearms. That's perfectly lawful because, like I said, not only is it temporary, but the transferee is in the presence of the transferor, the owner of the firearm. Therefore, because they're in the same presence, again, the actual transfer didn't actually occur. That's perfectly lawful. Therefore, these are the exceptions to the background check requirement under Nevada law.